It's helpful to understand responses both in children and in adults about what actually happens in the brain when a person is feeling under threat in some way, in some shape or form, whatever that threat might be. And these responses are called fight, flight, freeze, and collapse, or collapse or submit. And these responses are, again, they're hardwired in the brain. So every single mammal is going to, if they are feeling under threat in some way, will respond from one of those 4 different survival responses. So the fight response is clearly, if you're feeling under threat, it's that person who comes out fighting. So rather than trying to calm a situation down and let's negotiate and let's see if we can, work things out, that person will, step towards what the threat is and try and overpower it. The flight response is the person who has great difficulty in conflict situations. So if they're feeling challenged, if voices are raised, if they are feeling that someone is being overly critical or judgmental of them, their response as a way of trying to protect themselves will be to try and flee the situation. Let's just sort of get out of there as quickly as possible. The freeze response is the kind of like the deer caught in the headlights, and literally, I can't think, I don't know what to do. And this is the person who experiences in a very overwhelming and threatening situation that their brain just, it doesn't work. They can't make a decision. I don't know whether I should sort of come towards you and fight you, or whether I need to sort of back off and run away, or what to do. It's really just sort of like a very frozen response. And the collapse or the submit response is the person who feels completely hopeless and helpless, and they kind of just sort of give in the situation. Now, if you've got a child who's going more into fight mode, you might see this is a child who people will say they're really naughty and they're acting out, and they go to school and maybe they're getting into fights at school. They're bullying other children. Now, that's not because that's a bad child or a horrible child. This is a child who is struggling with what they're experiencing and is finding their best way of managing that. And what they're doing is they're reenacting what they're experiencing at home. Whereas you might find another child who, say, goes into collapse response and is incredibly unresponsive. And so this might be the child who doesn't at school, doesn't make friends easily, they're not interacting in the classroom, and the teacher may bypass them because they're not causing trouble, but they are struggling, they are suffering. It's just not necessarily going to be so obvious as a child who's kind of in that fight response and and acting out in some way.